Is for today, everything's okay, everything's okay. Never comes again, another day like yesterday. Is for today, everything's okay, everything's
Good morning,
okay.
everybody. I am going to touch on something. I'm going to tease something out that I may have addressed in another podcast. I think actually I haven't, but hold on, because I got something. My glasses that I can see as I look through them, and also I can see on the camera. So I was saying, actually, I don't think I have addressed this. I have written articles or I've made comments online about why I think affirmations are actually inherently unhealthy, and why when people come into therapy and they're like, hey, I want to work on my confidence, I want to rebuild my confidence, I want to rebuild my strength, why I think there's something inherently flawed about that, and why the idea of rebuilding your confidence or building strength or building self-esteem, I think is actually a backhanded insult to yourself. So I will explain that, but I'll start with a human being. When I was operating as a musician, a songwriter, an engineer, and a producer, I was not getting much traction. I had submitted a lot of stuff for 5, 6 years and only had one one thing that got submitted to a publisher. And my compositions were pretty good, my lyrics were good, but I was just not getting play, so I figured it must be the production values. So I went and took something called a home recording boot camp that was put on by a guy named Ronan Chris Murphy, who is a really, really talented and also fun producer and engineer to work with. But he's also just like one of the best humans I've ever met. He's very humble, genuinely grateful that he gets to do what he gets to do, works tirelessly, is really fun to hang out with, is a very musical producer. But in the process of learning to become a better engineer, and by the way, after his recording boot camp, I went on to have many, many successful submissions, got things published. I'm still making like very small amounts of money through royalties a decade later from stuff that's still out there with publishers. So his program made a big difference. But he said something in his program that I think applies to life in general and is going to apply to this subject that I'm talking about. And he was talking about eqing, which, for those of you who are not familiar with music, sound has different frequencies. So vocals, like a male mid-rangey vocal, might be somewhere in the mid-range of frequency. If you're playing a triangle, the frequency is going to be up here, short and fast. Bass has these big, massive frequencies, big, slow frequencies that just go through walls and everything. And when you're engineering a song, essentially you're trying to take all of these sounds, a bass guitar, a kick drum, the vocal, etc., that have overlying frequencies, and you're trying to keep them from canceling each other's frequencies out or standing on top of each other's frequencies such that everything becomes clear. And you have the additional problem that the room that you're recording in will bounce back certain frequencies, will augment certain frequencies and make them louder, that will then muddy up the sound. There will be, for example, with drums, to a certain extent, for some reason, drums bring out these mid-rangey, kind of harsh frequencies. And when you're a new engineer, a lot of what you're trying to do often is you're like, well, I have these plugins and I have this EQ and I want to add some high end and I want to add some, the bass is not loud enough or the kick's not loud enough. I'm gonna actually add some frequencies with this EQ. I'm going to turn up the volume. I'm going to add some frequencies here. I'm going to add some distortion. You keep trying to pile stuff on to make it sound better, to make it sound more powerful. And the truth is 99% of the time you end up with a crappier and crappier and muddier and muddier and weaker sounding production or song. And so one of the things that Ronan Chris Murphy said was that first you have to have the performance in the instrument, period. Either it's inspired or it's not. It sounds great or it doesn't. And then most of what you do is don't screw it up, right? Choose a microphone that pretty accurately picks up what's happening. Make sure that your chords and your gain staging, right, the level of volume or the level of gain is set to a pretty equal amount. You're not like jacking at one place and lowering in another place, and you get it into the machine, you get it on tape, you get it into a digital environment. Whatever it is, don't screw it up. And then probably 90% of EQing is actually subtractive EQing. So what that means is, for example, if you record some drums, for some reason that teases out these harsh mid-rangey sounds. And if right in the mid-range you subtract right around where all the noise is, all of a sudden the drums will start popping and sound warmer and more present and more three-dimensional. Wait, I didn't add anything. I actually had to pull the noise out. I had to pull out the noise and the thing that didn't belong to the instrument. And then suddenly the instrument just was what it was, this beautiful performance, this thing that pops. And that can happen, the same thing to the bass. There could be this wonky, ducky sort of sound and the bass is not very strong. And you pull out the frequency and you subtract it just in the right place. And suddenly this warm, fat, punchy sound is like boom, boom, hitting right there. So, okay, my apologies for digressing into engineering. But this applied in psychology so much that one of our biggest problems, our biggest challenges in life, and one of the biggest challenges I see with people when they come into the room is they've decided that there's something lacking about them because of their experiences. They've been torn down, they've been minimized, they've been reduced, they lack, they are not enough. And they come in and they're like, I need to work on this, or I need to get rid of my anxiety, I need to build confidence, I need to build calm, like I need to increase. They're trying to add something to themselves with the idea that they can be made better, that there's some ideal where someone has all of these ideal components, and that's why they're at peace, and that's why they're confident, and that's why they're excited and joyful and creative, and that's why many of the things that they do work out and add to themselves in the world, and they're just this ideal human being who's sorted everything out. When the truth is, what our negative experiences teach us, if they were in childhood and we learned some negative lessons, is they taught us a lie. They taught us that there is a lack. The lie that there is a lack. And then our brain and our nervous system burns through all of this bandwidth trying to generate the lack, trying to generate the limitations that hold us back. What we believe is, I've been torn down and I need to rebuild, I need to refill myself. This is not true. You have not been torn down. All of your energy gets burned up in attempting to limit how powerful you are. Once you've been abused and you buy the abuse and you buy the negative narrative about you, what burns through all your energy is not the trauma, is not the abuse, it's not what happened to you. It is that you burn through all of this energy trying to maintain a limitation on yourself, trying to squash how big you are, trying to squash how much volume you have as an individual, how much creativity, how much. It's trying to take what is a beautiful performance, a beautiful being, and you generate all this energy to maintain the limiting narrative, right? And so when people come in and they're like, I want to work on my confidence, and do you have some like positive mantras or some affirmations? Should I look in the mirror and say, I love myself, I am enough? Yeah, sure. If that works, I don't have any judgment. But in general, what I find is that when people are doing that, they're doing it from the belief that they are not enough. And every time you say, I am enough, you're trying to correct for something that is not true in the first place, right? If I take that performance, let's say it's a beautiful acoustic guitar, and it was just a beautiful performance the way it was, and then the noise of the room gets in the way, and it's the wrong microphone, and blah, blah, blah. And then I go in and I'm like, oh, it's not enough. Let me add these. Let me do affirmations. Let me do EQ affirmations to fix it. It's never going to work because there was nothing wrong with the performance in the first place. It was just this noise got applied to it. So the truth is, what I need to do is subtract the noise, and the performance is like, bam. Oh, it was always there. I didn't need to fix it. I needed to remove the stuff that was lying to me about what it was. The problem with affirmations is that people are attempting to fix a lie. People are attempting to compensate for a lie. And if you're trying to compensate for a lie, you're telling yourself the lie is true. Right? Let's say, I don't know, let's say I was born as an immensely beautiful presence on the earth. Let's say that was true. And then people behaved towards me and talked to me in a way that convinced me that I was really a piece of shit. If I stand in the mirror and go, I am a beautiful presence, why am I saying that? I'm saying that because I still believe the narrative. Maybe I should just admit that I'm generating the narrative and obscuring myself. And whatever I am, if I would stop generating the narrative and stop working to do that, I would stop obscuring myself, and whatever I am would come forward. Just like if I remove the noise of the room, suddenly pop, the drum set just boom. I didn't have to add EQ. I had to just remove the noise. I had to use EQ to remove the noise. Okay. This all sounds fairly abstract and generalized. So let me give it to you in a more concrete, and what the intention of this podcast was to talk through confidence specifically. So I'm sort of reviewing the fact that when people say positive affirmations, or when they work to add to themselves because they're seeking to heal themselves, that always, in my opinion, that always comes from a negative place. You're only confirming the lack. Why would you seek to add to yourself unless you felt that you needed to fill a lack? So there's no way to try to add to yourself without confirming that you believe that there's a lack. This is why I think affirmations are problematic. They work for some people. For some people, they're truly just say it over and over and over, and suddenly they'll realize, oh my God, I am enough. Awesome. If it works, don't listen to me. Great. Whatever works, works. But what I'm saying in general is, what I watch with clients is they can spend years working on feeling better about themselves and talking nicely, et cetera, when the only thing that works is to maybe go, maybe I don't need to do anything. Maybe I need to face the fear and challenge the fear that I'm not enough already, that I don't need to do anything, that the problem has been that I have been manipulating myself and attacking myself and suppressing whatever I am. And maybe I should just try to stop doing that. Just let whatever I am be whatever I am. Allow the mystery of who I am as a being on the face of this planet to come forward, and maybe I'll love it. Maybe I'll love who I am. Maybe that could happen. Maybe I don't have to add it, because trying to add is still that control. It's that little ego mind going, I need this and I need that, and that'll make me a better person. Like, so transactional. It's so gross that you're going to consciously add, that you know how to add the tremendous, beautiful, profound mystery that you are as a being on the face of this planet, that manifested, that you were born against the odds of the infinite other things that could have happened. You are what happened. The beautiful mystery of that. And you're like, I'm going to decide, I need to add this and I need a little bit more of this and blah, blah, blah. And then stop. Stop adding, stop doing stuff. Stop trying to think or decide who and what you are, and let who and what you are come forward and breathe in the freedom. Pardon me. The freedom, the mystery. And you may find that you are immensely beautiful. You may find that you are incredibly powerful. You may find that you are a beautiful mystery that cannot be quantified. So let me make it a little bit more specific and bring it to confidence. Why I think people's perception or idea of what confidence is inherently negative for the same reason. We're like, I need to build confidence. There's no such thing as building confidence. You should not be building an idea in your head that you're good and that you know and that you can do stuff, and that's just in your head. What does that have to do with anything? Do you think that if you're really good at stuff that you'll like yourself? There are lots of people that are incredibly talented and intelligent who can't stand themselves. There are people that are incredibly talented and intelligent and far above average performance in everything compared to other people who then commit suicide. Do you not understand that looking at these external markers and in a way being able, it's meaningless. It doesn't help you. You can't build confidence. People who are truly confident, those people that you look at and go, what is it? I don't understand. They went into the situation and they were effortlessly superior to everyone else, and they just seemed so humble about it. But then at the same time, they can go into a situation and just be incredibly clumsy, and they can be the worst person in the group, and they just seem fine with it. Those are both presentations of confidence, but those come from something that you cannot build. That's not built. You may discover it through the process of having experiences. That's not built. You can't build confidence. So I'm going to attempt to define what it is those people have. First, they accept the ineffable, beautiful, indescribable mystery of the fact that they exist, and there's no way to talk about that or justify it to make it good, bad, or there's no context. They're here, and that's just is. They are here, and they're not negotiating with people for the fact that they're here and that they want to create in life, and they want to take up space, and they want to breathe, and they want to have experiences, and they want, they're not negotiating or apologizing for that, because there was no rule book. They were not born and a rule book was handed to them that said, make sure that you apologize when you take up space. They're just like, I'm here. I'll try to make sure that me being here doesn't hurt anyone, but I'm here. I don't feel bad about that. And I'm going to take up space, and I'm going to eat, and I'm going to breathe, and I'm going to say, and I'm going to think, and I'm just going to be part of whatever this whole thing is. But get more specific. If you need something cognitive or something more, less mysterious to hold on to, something those people do and it can be broken down into three parts, is instead of feeling confident, right? There's some mysterious quality by which they believe in themselves. No, they don't believe in themselves. It's not about belief. First, they're just entitled to be here. No opinion about it. I'm here. I'm just going to enjoy that as much as I can. Okay? But this is what they do when they enter situations in which they have to act. They know three things, and this really, really helps. Instead of doing mantras and saying, I am enough, and, well, like, maybe you should do this. One, know what you know. Two, know what you have a decent chance of being competent at because you have enough adjacent knowledge and enough knowledge points that you could, with some work, put it together and do something that's like of value to you and others. And three, and the most important, the absolutely most important, is know what you don't know. Know what you don't know. That's when someone operates from that, they appear to be what we call competent. But that's not a belief about self. They're not believing something about me like, oh, I'm good or I'm so value. Like, it's not about value. It's not about identity or value. That person has allowed themselves experiences because why not? They're here. They just accept that their presence on the face of the planet, and they're living the way they want to in the directions their personality guide them. And they're not playing games with themselves, right? So this is a subtractive EQ. You're removing all of these ideas of value, all of these moral judgments of yourself, of a good person does this, a bad person does this, and I don't want to be this person, and I want to be that person, and I need to try harder to be more confident, and I don't like how I lack confidence, and if I was a little bit kinder, a little bit like, people are just constantly trying to remove ideas about themselves. Stop. Ideas are great for creating. Have an idea for going to the moon. Stop having ideas about you. You don't know what you are. You were born, and then a bunch of people just told you a bunch of stuff, and 99% of it was all bullshit based on what they had been told or based on what they want to believe. All these people have agendas, whether they're conscious of it or not, and their agenda makes them want to feel better about themselves because they're trying to negotiate with their identity. And so when they tell you stuff that they say is true, they're actually trying to solve their identity. They're adding a bunch of EQ, and then you're getting in an argument with how they add EQ, and you're trying to add your EQ to fix your identity. It's all bullshit. Don't believe things about yourself. Just know what you know. Know what you have a pretty decent chance of being competent at so that you could tell people, hey, if there isn't someone who's more of an expert, I'd be willing to take this on with humility, and I can do some research, and I know a bit about this. I think I could probably help. And for Christ's sake, know what you don't know. And just be like, I don't know. Not shame, like, oh, I'm supposed to know. No, I don't know. Why would I? Like, the only reason I would shame myself for not knowing is, again, because I'm making an identity judgment. Well, one thing that you don't know is you don't know what your moral value is on the face of the planet, because all you have is a bunch of people telling you what it is. If there's a God, God will decide what your moral value is. Stop trying to decide what your moral value is. You don't know what your moral value is. Okay, let me give you maybe a more concrete situation. I'll talk about therapy, psychology, since that's my thing, right? The reason I know about this is because I spent a lot of time really uncomfortable and trying to prove my identity, and it never feels good, and trying to prove it before I knew what I knew. Even sometimes I knew a lot more than other people. Like I've been to trauma trainings where it's like, well, I've done so much research on my own that I can go to a trauma training and everything that I hear is maybe less information than I already have, meaning no judgment, just, it's just a fact, right? But when I was trying to make it about my identity, it was like, why am I not giving this talk? And, you know, blah, blah, like, would people listen? Like, that's all identity bullshit. Do you know what you know? Do you know what you have a reasonable competency at, but you don't know everything at? Do you know what you don't know? If you're making it about identity, you're never going to feel good. Because if you're questioning your identity, you're already saying it's possible that I'm not what I'm supposed to be, that I'm not enough. You're already begging the question, am I enough? And if you're asking the question, you've already decided you're not. Otherwise, you wouldn't ask the question. The truth is, you don't know what you are. You're just here. You're here. And all you have is what a bunch of people told you. And most of what people told you isn't good, isn't healthy. All right. So in my situation, I'm a particular type of person. Very, very philosophical. I was thinking existentially by the time I was like 6 or 7 years old. I read, it was literally addictive. I was raised without TV, so I read, and I read everything. I read trashy novels. I read Shakespeare. I read science. I read biographies, autobiographies, memoir. Like I read and read and read and read constantly. This is just who I am. That's how I am, right? So there's a lot of existential thought and a lot of experience that way, a lot of thinking about thinking. And then I went through my own therapy process for 20 years and agonized over all of these things and read about trauma and about, and I even bought the DSM and read like years before I became a therapist. It was just like, what is this shit? What does this mean? And then started critiquing it. Like, that's not fair. That's pathologizing someone. That's pretty accurate, you know, blah, blah. So I was thinking through all of this stuff. And then I went to a very good program. And while I was in the program, I took extra classes. It was exhausting. I took extra classes. And then I took extra training in the trauma resiliency model and EMDR and attachment focus EMDR and community counseling from the Southern California Counseling Centers for 6 months. And like I was constantly working and working and working and working at this thing. And I never stopped doing that. I'm sure there are people who know more than I do. There are researchers. I'm pretty sure Bessel van der Kolk knows more than I do. He's a researcher. Like he has hard data. I have anecdotal data, a lot of it, and I'm paying attention, but I'm not a researcher. So when people come to me and they're like, hey, I'm interested in EMDR, I know what I know. I'm not confident. I have tons of issues. Like I can get into my BS. I can have a trauma flashback. I have issues, but I know what I know. And I know that I know so much in this particular area that at this point, there aren't a lot of chances that there's something that's so off the radar for me that I'm just incompetent at it. There can be cases where I'm like, oh, I know what this is, but I don't have tons of experience. I should maybe consult with a colleague. I should maybe read up on this, look at the techniques for approaching it, or maybe I should tell this client, hey, there might be someone better for you. But I know, and I know what I don't know, and I know what I'm reasonably competent at, right? So to a certain extent, I know what I know. I've pushed so long that there are things that I know that it's not about me believing it. I know that I know, right? And then there are things, if someone came to me and said, hey, I'm really interested in acceptance and commitment therapy, I have some exposure to it. I understand it. I really like it. It's a beautiful way of approaching mental health issues. I'm not an expert. But if someone was like, well, I'm comfortable with you, but I want to do that, I have enough data points that I could spend a weekend and I could come up with a course of treatment over 6 months or a year that would be pretty effective, that would honor what acceptance and commitment therapy is. If that person was like, I want someone who's been with this their entire career, like I have been with EMDR, okay, then I'm going to refer you out. But I know that there's going to be a reasonable competency, there's going to be effective competency. And then I know what I don't know. There's a technique, I forget what it is, but basically you hook people up to electrodes and you can read their brain activity and figure out what's understimulated, what's overstimulated, and then you can actually help that person stimulate those areas, and then they begin to experience different things as their brain operates more fully. We're doing this with EMDR, but this technician is literally doing this with electrodes, and I don't know. I don't. If you come and say, hey, I really want to do this, I'm going to tell you, you should go to someone else. I know that I don't know how to do that. I know that I don't know. And so I've developed, even though I'm a mess as a human being and tons of trauma and I have my issues and neurotic and blah, 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 when it comes to this field, I've developed what might be viewed as confidence. Like people might go like, oh, he seems really confident. Oh, I'm a mess as a human being. I'm like everybody else. But the reason I come off that way is because I know what I know. I know what I have a chance at reasonable competency, and I know what I don't know. And I'm not interested in pretending because I know that there's enough value that I can offer. See, when people try to pretend that they know what they don't know, again, there's always this negative assumption built in. The reason someone does that is because what they're afraid is they don't know what they know. They don't have something to offer value. They don't believe that they offer enough value. And so they want to pretend that they know what they don't know, because the truth is they believe they don't know much about anything and they don't have any value to offer. So they don't feel comfortable telling someone, I don't know that. You shouldn't come to me for that. What I know is this. And if this is what you want, let's talk. That looks like confidence, like, oh, they're so sure of them. No. I'm not sure of myself. I don't know what the hell I am. I don't know what I'm doing. I have my issues. I have my trauma. It's simply that when it comes to offering value to people within this field, I know what I know. I know what I've trained on. I know how many books I've read. I know how much experience I've had. I know how much consulting I've done. I know the success stories. I know where I've gone wrong. I've examined those things. I'm not more confident than somebody else. I just know what I know. And I know what I have a reasonable competency at, what I have a chance at, and I know what I don't know. So confidence, you don't build confidence. It's not some belief about yourself. It is having accepted yourself. Stop trying to define yourself. Stop trying to have a belief about yourself. Stop trying to decide whether you're moral or immoral, good, bad, blah, blah. That's all bullshit that people imposed on you. You're never going to win by negotiating with that system, because that system is a lie in the first place. Nobody knows what they are. If you have a religious system and you believe in your religious system, every single religious system, especially the monotheistic ones, are like, God's going to decide. God knows. Why don't you stop? Like, yeah, there are tons of human beings who set themselves up as the judges and arbiters. They're not. They're not. They should be helping guide you into behaviors that maybe, like your holy book says, hey, this is a better way for you to go. But in the end, if you believe in God, it's God's decision. God knows what you are and who you are, right? Just accept that you're here. And if you want that peace that looks like competence and confidence, begin figuring out, without the moral judgments and without the BS, what do I know? Like really know that I can use to add value, that I can help people with? What is it that I have reasonable competency? I don't know everything, but I have enough data points that I could really build this out to offer something. If there isn't someone of far greater expertise available in the situation, or if someone just wants me for whatever particular reason. And what do I not know? And just be honest. One of the greatest confidence boosts I ever experienced, when I began teaching, I was still really, really struggling with some overwhelming anxiety. And teaching was just panic attack after panic attack after panic attack, standing in front of people and just having this iron discipline to like squash it and hold myself together and right. But I was using teaching to try to navigate my identity, which never works. You can't improve or solidify your identity by your experiences, because those are informed by all these other people who are trying to solidify their identity, and a lot of them are going to do it by sending you messages that you're not good or you're not as good. Whatever. You can't work it out in that field. One of the greatest reliefs in teaching is when I caught myself trying to invent answers to things I didn't know. Because I felt like if I said, I don't know, are you a teacher? Or like, why don't you know? Like if they're asking something about grammar, like, well, stop. Take a deep breath. Look at that student and go, you know what? That's a great question. I actually don't know the answer to that question. And let me tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go consult with some colleagues. I'm going to figure out a good way to explain it to you. And next class, I'm going to tell you. Please don't let me forget. Okay? Well, we don't want to let this one go. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. That didn't add confidence. That removed this bullshit noise from the room. The room is this entire experience in this globe. It removed this noise that was obscuring who I naturally am. Because who I naturally am is curious and intellectual. And I love language. I was teaching English as a second language. And so if I would just admit that I didn't know, I found that I was really good at explaining things and really good at seeing how people's brains were working and how this particular student brain was working. And when I would go away and go, oh, what is this thing that they're asking? What is it actually? Not only did I find that I was able to find the information quickly and easily, but I found that I was very good at explaining in a way that that person's brain could access it. When I stopped layering this bullshit on myself of trying to prove my identity, some idea of what it is to be a teacher or to be a good teacher, and I removed that noise, who I was showed up to be way better than the belief that I was trying to build about myself. Don't build a belief about yourself. Don't believe anything about yourself. That's the noise from the room. Use subtractive EQ, remove the noise from the room, and discover yourself. And when you don't know, say you don't know. And if you're not sure whether you know or not, you don't know. I have some spiritual beliefs, but on these podcasts, I often say, hey, I'm not a spiritual leader, blah, blah, blah. That's not because I don't have a lot of thoughts about it, and some of them I'm pretty sure. The reason I say that is because I know that I don't know for sure. I don't. There are some spiritual leaders who are like, they've experienced it, right? So they're living in enlightened, right? If you believe them or not, I don't care, but right, whatever it is that they have, I don't have. I have been led through my experiences and through my thinking to think certain things are true, but I know that I don't know. So I'm just going to be like, I'm not a spiritual leader. I'm just sharing with you what I've experienced and what I think, right? Know what you don't know. And just say it. It removes the noise from the room. And then who you are naturally pops forward, and you will find yourself to be brighter, warmer, more present. You will find that you are far more than you ever thought. If you will stop trying to build an identity, stop trying to build confidence, stop trying to build self-esteem, and just start removing the noise. And a good technique is just know what you know. It's like, hey, I know this. I am highly competent at this. Know what you have reasonable competency. I have enough data points that I could put something together that would add value, and know what you don't know. And just live out of that. You will find that you will begin discovering who you are naturally, and you will find that you are more beautiful, more present, you are bigger, you have way more value to offer. That literally just comes from who you are, not what you've invented to do, and not ideas that you've invented of yourself. When I was a teacher, I wasn't a good teacher because I decided I wanted to be a good teacher and had an idea of a good teacher. When I discovered that I was a good teacher, it was because I stopped trying to be a good teacher and discovered that who I was fine, was more than enough. When or if I became of any value to my colleagues as therapists and in psychology, it's when I stopped trying to build an idea of myself as a talented therapist or as a good therapist, and just removed the noise and just went, like when they're talking through things, if I see something that I've had these experiences, I've done tons of study, and I'm like, hey, there's this person who does this thinking and there's this approach, blah, blah, blah. If I know what I know and I just offer that and they're like, oh, that really works. Thank you. Okay. Who I was, who I am, showed up as larger and more valuable and more beautiful than the idea. The idea you have of yourself is the noise. It needs to be removed. Forget about it. Just know what you know what you might have a reasonable competency at, and know what you don't know. And be honest and direct with yourself and everyone else. And you will slowly discover that who you are as a living conscious being born on the face of this planet is so much more beautiful, has so much more to offer, is so much bigger than anything you ever thought. So stop thinking about yourself. Stop trying to decide. Stop trying to have ideas. Stop trying to have beliefs about yourself. You cannot have a belief about yourself that either isn't backhanded insulting you because you're like, well, I believe I'm wonderful. No, if you believe that, you wouldn't be thinking about belief. Because belief is not what you are. What you are is ineffable, indescribable. You are here against all odds. Just start there. Know what you know. Know what you have a reasonable competency at, and know what you don't know. Throw out all the beliefs. Stop believing stuff. Stop it. Stop believing stuff about yourself. Confidence does not come from believing stuff about yourself. Confidence comes from just allowing you to be here. Allowing you to be here, accepting you as present as this mystery, and exploring and having experience of who you are. And a really good technique for that is just start with, what do I know I know? What do I know I have a reasonable chance at competency? And what do I know that I don't know? Don't make a bunch of noise with belief. Don't chant a bunch of affirmations. If you're trying to affirm something good about yourself, it only means that you believe something negative about yourself. But the truth is you shouldn't be believing anything about yourself. Allow yourself to have experiences of yourself. You may find that what you discover without belief is far more beautiful and powerful than anything you ever imagined. All right, that's all for now. Love you guys. Talk to you next time.
Just for today, everything's okay, everything's okay.